Spring
You have to look
ball.
forward to.
I'm sorry.
See what you have to look forward
It's nice to see so many people.
I know. Yeah. It's good. And everybody has different
Okay.
expertise, which is good. That's why you be really good.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and announce the meeting. This is the Far West Texas Water Planning Group meeting, and today is July 23rd. It is 1:10 p.m. Mountain Time, and I will now turn over the meeting to our chair, Scott Reiner.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for everybody's attendance. We have a pretty good full house here in El Paso, and we have a full virtual attendance, and we do have quorum, correct?
Yes, we do now. Yes.
All right. We have, thanks to our friends in Dale City.
Yes.
That's a shout out to Randy. He's making the meeting happen. And I'm, as I announced earlier, I'm surrounded by Daves, so I just have to say Dave and the room will respond here. Okay.
Actually, the room responds whether you say Dave or not.
Okay, so I'd again like to welcome everybody. It's been several months since our last meeting, April 23rd, and so now here we are. I think we've got an interesting meeting. We had an executive meeting earlier, and from that I learned that we have a lot of people interested in the planning process, which is a great thing for our plan. I think we need some new life to our plan, some new ideas, some new things to get better on. And so we're going to talk about that. And then ultimately, later on, Jennifer's going to provide us a good update of where we are in the planning process. So I know that we have lots of new people that have not been through the process. So it's interesting to see where we're at. And with that, I'll wrap up item number 1 and head to item 2. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Hearing no public comment, I go to item 3, recognition of guests and designated alternates. I know, go ahead.
Yeah, so we, in terms of alternates, I do not see anyone on the meeting or in person that's an alternate for a member. But in terms of non-voting, Mr. Melendez, I can't remember if this is this your first time joining the meeting?
It's actually my second time.
Okay, well, I wasn't there the first time. No, so we have Mr. Melendez, and do you want to just, again, one more time, if it's okay, to announce your agency?
Yes, I'm with the Bureau of Reclamation. We manage the Rio Grande project from Elephant Butte Reservoir to El Paso County, Hudspeth County line. So I'm based in El Paso under the Albuquerque area office. I believe you knew my predecessors, Bert Cortez, Woody Irving,
Yes.
Mike Landis. Yeah, they're all retired, but we're still here.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And I'm sure Mike Landis has thanked you for coming to work today.
I'm sure he is.
So using Mike Landis's line, his famous line is, I want to thank you all for coming to work today on our plan. Okay.
We'll take that from him.
Do we introduce the folks I have here?
I think we can introduce our guests when we do the nominations.
Okay.
And then just, we do have Elizabeth McCoy, who used to be with us. She's now in a different capacity, but she's pinch hitting for Heather Rose and serving as our planner for Water Development Board. Hi, Heather. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, good to be with you guys today.
All right, and I'm looking at the, I don't think there's anyone else to introduce. We do have Corello Engineering as well as Friesen Nichols team, so they'll be talking during their agenda items. So if you'd like, what we can do now is we can turn it back over to the agenda, and we can go on to number 4 if you'd like, Chairman Reiner.
Okay, so item number 4 is review and approve the minutes of the General Committee meeting held on April 23rd, 2024. Do I have any comments on these minutes?
If no comments, Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of those minutes.
Second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes.
All right. Okay, then we can move on to agenda item 5, Chairman, and that is to discuss and consider action regarding all nominations related to the Far West Texas Water Planning Group vacancies for voting members. And just as a reminder, we had vacancies in economic development for urban, economic development rural. We had tourism, and I believe those were all, oh, and we have generating electric utilities. Those are the positions that we had vacant.
Okay, we're getting some feedback. Can somebody check their mic and,
We got it.
all right. Oh, it's Annette, huh? Sorry. Oh, let's blame Randy. I think it's Randy and, yeah, there he is. He's
Thank you for the
on.
discretion.
Good old Randy, coming in last, that happens, right? Okay, so we're on item 5 and discuss and consider action regarding all nominations related to vacancies for voting members. And as Annette mentioned, we have economic development urban, economic development rural, tourism, and electric. So who was the representative for economic development urban?
That would be,
Robert Ransom.
And is he here to,
I don't think Roberto was going to be able to join us, but Roberto's with El Paso County Economic Development Department. He's their director and formerly with the Hunt Institute out of Utah.
okay. And then we have an economic development rural,
Do that last.
We'll do that one.
Do that last.
do that
Let's
last.
do tourism.
Okay, tourism,
For tourism, we have Jose Landeros, and he is he's director with El Paso County Strategic and Mobility Director. And I'm sure there's other positions he's already been assigned since we've last talked to him, because he manages quite a few programs within the county, but he did go under tourism as well.
He's not up on the call either?
No, sir.
Okay. And then electric.
Electric utilities. for-
Okay. and then we have for electric utilities, we have Raquel Ansures. And I'd like for y'all to hear what Raquel's vision of the state water planning process and her interest in our group. So Raquel?
Good afternoon now. My name is Raquel Ansures. I work as a plant chemistry supervisor for all the power plants for El Paso Electric. I believe one of our environmental engineers at that time was representing El Paso Electric a couple years ago and has gone off to do great things, VP of our sustainability and renewables group. So she's quite busy. But as far as what I envision El Paso Electric to be able to contribute is anything that affects the community necessarily or regarding the services that we provide for the community. As a plant chemistry supervisor, I work directly with the water treatment for power generation. And so if there is no water, there is no power. And so that became very, very clear, when we've had outages or if we have a water treatment system down, we only get called on when there's an issue. And so if we are more familiar with how power generation or the electric company contributes to the water planning side, I think is important. It would be I would probably be the good conduit between El Paso Electric and the water planning group and vice versa to be able to communicate what our plan is, what the intentions are, and how we as a company can contribute to the community. We also, as part of the water treatment side, we do use a lot of the well water. We use city water, and we do discharge to Rio Grande at one of our power plants on the west side of El Paso. And so we are regulated by all of the New Mexico permitting and regulations as well as Texas. And so we are very visible when it comes to the community, how we are using our water or how we are providing power and how that impacts the community. So I hope to be that representative for me to be able to educate El Paso Electric and what we can do, as well as come share that with the water plant group. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Raquel. And as we talked earlier with Jennifer, and when we work on our plan, there's a nice chapter on El Paso Electric and electric generation, and there is a water nexus, and having somebody from the electric company involved with our plan only makes it have a better plan. So we're glad that Raquel's part of this group. So that being said, I think I'm going to have a motion here from Dave Hall.
I'd like to move that we accept Jose Landeros for the position of the vacant position of tourism, Roberto Ransom for the vacant position of economic development urban, and Raquel Ansuris for the vacant position for electric generating utilities.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
There you go. Now you go.
Wait, what was the first one?
Jose Landeros for tourism.
Okay, so these are the three that there's only one applicant for.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll have you up for your work next.
Get ready. Okay, so any discussion? That was some discussion there from Teresa. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No? Okay,
Congratulations.
and congratulations, motion passes. Okay, next, again, I want to state we're really pleased with the interest that we have in our planning group. Now we are going to accept, we have nominations for, 3 nominations for 1 position, and that's where we have our lawyer, Teresa, helping us out. We're doing this all legally, okay? But we have Daniel Bueno, who's actually here, and we'd like for you to hear what he has to say. We have John Kennedy, he's on virtual from Presidio, and we have Thomas Black. And is he available?
I don't believe he's in this meeting, but Thomas Black is an alderman from City of San Elizario.
And he did call in and talk to us during the executive committee meeting.
So once we hear from Daniel and John Kennedy, we will cast a vote to determine who is the contestant or the recipient of being selected. Okay, so I'd like to start off with Daniel Bueno. Go ahead, Daniel.
Good evening, Chairman, committee members. My name is Daniel Bueno. I'm actually employed currently with the Village of Vinton. We're a small municipality off the northwest part of El Paso County. As part of my job duties entail, among others, is that I was one with a team of the village responsible for managing $34 million in federal and state grant funding to bring first-time water and sewer to our community. We managed to have connected, as of today, 506 first-time water and sewer connections. We managed to decommission old failing water systems that had been flagged by the TCQ for E. coli and high arsenic levels. So thus addressing a public health and safety concern that had plagued our municipality for a long time. On top of that, we are spearheading movement in the what's referred to as the upper valley of the El Paso County area. That includes the town of Anthony and 5 surrounding colonias to also bring access to first-time water and sewer connections. There's a lot of outlying colonias within our municipality. And just as a little bit of a reminder, or to go more in depth, a colonia is defined as an unincorporated community that has blighted or dilapidated conditions, meaning they lack basic infrastructure such as water, sewer, among other utilities, as well as any substantial building codes. Thus, we are spearheading movements to bring these much needed infrastructure to them. We would be open again to collaborate with any of the surrounding communities, to include El Paso County, town of Anthony, to collaborate in bringing these services. And then to tie it back down to economic development, we do have a comprehensive master plan that delineates the vision that the council at the time had. And part of it is with water and sewer, you actually get to spur a lot of residential and commercial development. We, of course, want to take advantage now that we have that capacity to make sure to reallocate it appropriately through land use regulation, and thus bring not just quality of life at this point, but actually have a sprawling economic development success to our communities in the terms of job creations, high retaining job creations in this case, and again, to continue and helping where we can in our outlying neighborhoods in the Upper Valley region.
Very good. Well, thank you, Daniel. I'd like to hear next from John. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Do we have any questions for Daniel? So I'll just summarize real quick that he's in the Vinton area, just north of El Paso, has a lot of interest in water supply projects, as you can hear him talk about. And so hearing no other questions, let's go into hear what John Kennedy has to tell us. John?
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, y'all. I'm over here in Presidio. Hopefully some of y'all get a chance to be over here at some point. I hadn't been over here. My background, I grew up in San Antonio, went to school in Austin, and spent time in Washington, D.C. as an urban policy expert and infrastructure planner. I ended up in Alpine, of all places, about 6 years ago. And now this year, I actually met a land surveyor and kind of wrote off policy and meetings and emails, but I ended up pulled back into it because I'm down in Presidio now, and I was hired for a survey, but they've wanted to take advantage of my experience in development, urban planning, infrastructure, et cetera, policy. So I've actually been hired by the city of Presidio to develop an economic community resiliency and economic development strategy. And we're also working on green infrastructure, master planning, water, basic water and sewer infrastructure for the city, and tying in with the county as well as the North American Development Bank. And so I'm having a lot of fun basically integrating all of my experience. And I've worked on everything from transportation plans to ocean planning to downtown Austin parking, and now cleaning the wastewater plant in the city of Alpine. So this is just putting it all together and working closely with Trey Gerfers with Presidio County, the county judge Portillo, and there's a lot of potential. And I know there's EDAP and other things happening with the Water Development Board. I'm drinking it all from a fire hose, but this seemed like a really interesting opportunity. So so glad to hear that there's a lot of strong interest, and it almost seems like your rural economic development category might need a little bit more articulation, since I know Presidio being so remote and rural compared to Vinton, but of course the needs are different everywhere, and there's a lot more population out there too that needs help. So with any way I could help participate, I'd be happy to in whatever capacity, and just to learn more. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, John. Very well spoken. Do we have any questions for John? Very good. And we have Thomas Black, that he spoke earlier this morning with our executive group, and he's lives in the lower valley of El Paso. He's from Isleta, lives in San Elizario and been in Socorro, has a real passion for water supply projects down in that area of the borderland region. And so that being said, I think, Annette, now do we need a motion?
No, it's time for Teresa to talk to us a little bit.
Teresa, our attorney, thank you.
I'm not acting as your attorney, but I will go ahead and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the wording of number 5, this discussion has come about because the 2 candidates that you heard from have so much to offer. And also Alderman Black also seemed to really want to serve. And it seems that each of these folks would bring something different and are each representing an area that are not currently represented on our water planning group. And so there was discussion in the executive committee meeting about wanting all of these gentlemen to serve and how to make that happen. And so looking at number 5, discussion and consider action regarding all nominations related to Far West Texas Water Planning Group vacancies for voting members. The action is regarding all of the nominations. There are 3 separate nominations. So I feel like that language is broad enough to allow the creation of other vacancies to accommodate that. So that's my opinion because of the wording of regarding all nominations related to the vacancies for voting members. So.
Teresa, could I
Yes,
ask a question, Mr. Chairman? Teresa, I love your conclusion. I'm in favor of that. We had talked about the possibility of having to repost for the creation of 2
yes.
new positions. Can you address that?
Yes, that would need to happen. I think the motion today would be to make a nomination and vote on whomever that one person is for the existing position, and also vote, because of the quality of the nominations we received for rural economic development, to create 2 new vacancies for that position and advertise for those.
Thank you. And Annette and Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that in our current roster, we have 3 voting positions for water district category. So this is not out of line with what we've done in the past, setting up voting rights. Okay.
Elizabeth, Dave, do you have any thoughts or comments on what was just said?
Regarding kind of membership, there are like 12 interest categories that the planning group is required to have at least 1 member of. But this position for economic development rural is something that the planning group has kind of added on to those. So kind of our suggestion would be to follow planning group's bylaws regarding kind of membership and whatever they may say about creating a new member position.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds like a green flag, green light there.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like we need to entertain a motion.
Well, we've got to figure out, we've got to figure out a way to differentiate the 3 candidates.
Well, we say today's nominee accepted is, and then we make a motion for creating the new positions that will be posted, right?
Yeah, we may have some difference of opinion on who currently fills that position, though.
When we have voting members, let's ask them to vote. Say who should be nominated today.
So just as okay, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to remind everyone that we do have Alderman Black from San Elizario, Daniel Bueno from Village of Vinton, and Mr. Kennedy from City of Presidio.
I move for today's nominee to be appointed to be John Kennedy from Presidio.
Second from Becky Brewster.
Okay.
Good. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? No. Motion passes.
Okay, now I'd like to make a motion that the COG advertises the 2 additional
Voting economic development
rural positions, and then solicits nominees for those positions, for those 2 additional positions.
Okay.
and that those positions be brought on as voting members.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Now, effectively, what that means is that you guys will need to reapply when you see that nomination opportunity come out. And hopefully there will be an opportunity to verify both of you guys into, I mean, I'm sorry, you're already in.
Yes.
In the system, depending on who nominates.
Absolutely. Thank you so much
But
all
we
for,
expect to see you reapply.
so thank you so much for the consideration.
Stay
Thank you,
here.
Dennis.
Stay here.
You just stay. You're always welcome
Go to
as
the
a
rest-
non-voting
Go
to
member.
the-
Until that happens, you're welcome to be here as a non-voting member and free to say what you choose.
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to congratulate the nominees, and we look forward to working with everyone. And thank you, Teresa.
Sure. And I have a question, Mr. Chairman. If we can go ahead and get that into the papers and the postings and everything that our bylaws require, will it be possible to have our new members on board for the September meeting?
Yes,
Should be.
yes, because it's a 30-day requirement, so we can do it next week.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you. We're not often in this position where we have an abundance of consideration, so we'll
We need to get
maximize on
right
this
on.
opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so then
We skipped it.
we can move on to agenda item 6, Chairman, and that's the report from Carollo on the schedule of the regional water planning process. And Jennifer, if you'd like, you can take over the screen. That way it's easier for you to maneuver.
Okay, give me just a second.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, hang on just a second. Let me pull up my slideshow.
Wish right. Second.
Okay, let me start sharing and see if it'll work okay here. Yeah, it wants to pick a different monitor. Give me just a minute. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
How about in the audience, virtually? Can you see Jennifer's screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Jackson. I am the primary technical consultant for the Far West Texas Regional Water Planning Group. And with me today is both Crystal Williams and John Albright. They are my subconsultants from Friesen Nichols. And today we'll walk through our agenda, but just to note, there's no action to vote. This is informative, this meeting, and we're reviewing some preliminary draft chapters, both chapter 1 and chapter 2. So it'll make more sense as I move through the slide deck. So to begin, we always kind of start with an update on where we're at in the schedule. Based on some conversation in the executive committee meeting this morning, because we've got some new members coming on board, it was advised that I take a little more time to kind of talk about that schedule, what we've done, where we're at, and where we're headed. In addition, it was also recommended that we maybe schedule Annette and Peggy a new member class where I can meet with them and go through a new member PowerPoint, which really goes into more detail about what is regional water planning and the state's requirements. What does it take to develop a regional water plan, looking at that scope in more detail and the specifics. And then how does it all kind of come together in the end to develop our next regional water plan, but more importantly, that state plan. So if there's interest to do that, I'll feel better about
not rushing in that meeting. But for today, we'll do a high level kind of introduction as best I can. So like I mentioned, we're going to review our draft chapter 1 and our draft chapter 2. These were posted a week or two out before the meeting. So if you haven't had a chance to go onto the COGS website and download copies, they are red line revision copies so that you can see what's being changed from what was in our plan previously. And then the ask is that you really do a thorough review and find areas where, if you're a new member, you want to bring some more detail in around a different, a certain topic. If you've been a member of the planning group, we're always updating our water plan every 5 years. And so if I've missed something, or if you're representing a specific interest or area and haven't responded yet to some of my earlier emails, this is an opportunity for you to connect with me through an email or phone call, either way, whatever's easiest. And let's talk about how we can update the content so that our regional water plan truly reflects our local interests and needs. Okay, so without further ado, this is the Water Development Board's working schedule that was updated March. And where the red circle is where we're sitting right now. We, for those who don't know, I was with a former engineering firm. We've made a transition. We've successfully made that transition. We've met our technical memo deadline. And in addition to that, we've also submitted our notice to proceed for task 5B, which allows the Water Development Board to understand, in detail how we're going to spend those funds. And they've approved that task 5B notice to proceed. And so now we've got the green light to start that work. And so that's something that we'll be doing between now and September, is really connecting with the sponsors to the existing water management strategies in the 2021 plan and asking, are these still viable? Are they needing to be updated? Do you have new strategies that you need represented in the regional water plan for funding purposes? Do some of them go away? So that's the work we're going to start here in the next week or two. To add a little more detail around the schedule, per some conversation at our executive committee meeting, I've brought in a new slide just to show where we're at with our work. So this is a task breakout table that is used in our contracts. You can ignore the dollar amounts if you want. More importantly is just the fact that there are 10 tasks that we have to complete in order to develop our regional water plan. We completed task 2A and 2B, which was surrounding non-municipal and municipal population and water demand projections. So for those that are new to the planning group, this is work that we've completed. And if we can set up a new member class, I'll talk in detail about what are the steps to developing a regional water plan, because they build on each other. And so once we are given our population data from the Water Development Board, which gets it from the Census Bureau, then the planning group has to go in and review that information. And this time around, some of the methodology around that projection changed. And so there was a lot of good, healthy conversation about what our population per county, per area ought to be. And we sent in a revision request letter because we felt like we needed to modify some of those projections to better reflect the growth that's happening in our counties in Region E. So we did that. The planning group approved our revision requests, which was based on some census data, national undercount data, and then we heavily surveyed all of the entities in Region E and asked them about how many connections and are there plats and anything we could collect to kind of justify, growth in our areas. With that new information, then the Water Development Board develops water demands, and that data is given back to the technical consultants to share with the planning group. And so we've done that. And then from there, we begin to build where our water needs are, which means there's a shortage. So you have, your infrastructure allows you to tap into a source for X amount, but your water demand may be larger or smaller. If it's larger, you have a shortage. If your demand is smaller than what you already can tap into, you have a surplus. And so that's discussion that we're going to have in the September meeting because that falls into Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. And so those draft chapters, Crystal and John and I will be working on so that we can get that out to you for review. We've completed, like I said, the technical memo, which was our task 4, and we've gotten the green light to start working on task 5B, which is that evaluation of those recommended water management strategies, both in our previous water plan and then any new project that we feel should be added on to that list and represented and reflected in our new water plan. All right, so hopefully for the new members, that helps just a little bit to see, what we've done and where we're at and where we're headed. So if you've had an opportunity to download the draft Chapter 1, you're going to notice there's a lot of red lines. Some of them just come with language like, in 2020, our projected population was X. That's old language. It's been updated to say in 2030. But then there's also been some substantial changes made and enhancements that we've done to Chapter 1. So I really encourage each of you to take seriously the homework assignment that I'm going to send your way in downloading those chapters and combing through it, reviewing it, reading it. Look at it through the lens of what you're representing as a stakeholder and your interests, and then connect with me on where we can continue to enhance our regional water plan. Because yes, the temptation is that because we update every 5 years, we could gloss over things. And what I've committed and what John and Crystal have committed to doing is making each plan an organic and evolving plan to truly reflect the activities that are happening in your area to the best of our ability. Chapter 1 is divided into 13 sections. And so before I go on, Mr. Chairman, we are past that Agenda 6 and I think moving into Agenda 7. Do we need to pause or should I continue?
I think we keep on going.
Okay.
You're on a roll.
Yeah. So Chapter 1 is divided into 13 main sections. I've listed those sections here, and this PowerPoint is not intended to go through every red line revision. It's just to give you some highlights as to what we discuss in each of those sections. It is one of the larger chapters in our plan. It may actually be a little bit larger than Chapter 7, which is our drought chapter. But as I said to the executive committee members, we did such a really good job developing Chapter 7 several planning cycles ago that we have one of the larger drought chapters, very detailed. So in our Chapter 1, you can kind of think of it as high-level summary, little synopsises throughout, the regional water plan all summed up in one chapter. So let's go ahead and get kicked off and kind of talk about what this chapter entails. So in Region E is comprised of a total of 7 counties. The rule revisions and key changes, there have been some rule revisions and key changes which have been outlined in Chapter 2, Section 2.1.1. This introduction section kind of talks about the boundaries of the region, the interim regional water supply research projects that we continue to list in our plan, and the COG has record of if you're interested in some of those interim research projects. The participation of our groundwater conservation districts and recognition of their management plans and rules. We do a high-level summary on the MAG differences between the previous plan and this plan. We did talk about that in our previous meeting. And then we do kind of highlight this priority groundwater management area. So the introduction section sets the stage for all of the fun details that will come into this chapter, starting with some of the geographic setting of the region. So I've just grabbed some of the figures that we've got in our Chapter 1. around our physiography and population and regional economy kind of sit underneath this section. So counties claim some of the most impressive, in Region E, our counties claim some of the most impressive topography. Region E is home to the Guadalupe Mountains National Park, Big Bend National Park, and the contiguous Big Bend Ranch State Park, which you'll see in other figures in Chapter 1. All 7 counties that comprise the planning area lie solely within the Rio Grande River Basin. We have one river basin in our region. And the largest city in the region is El Paso City, which is also the nation's largest city on the US-Mexico border. So lots of fun facts kind of tucked into these subsections. When we talk about our population and regional economy section, there's mention of, apart from El Paso County, the counties of the far west Texas are among the least populated in the state. The region's population is projected to increase from about 1,022,933 in 2030 to almost 1.2 million in 2080. Now, there's a lot of discussion around that population growth, which you will see outlined in your Chapter 2, and I believe we said it was Section 2.1.2, but we'll take a look at that here in a minute. Basically, the land use can be described in 6 categories: urban or developed, cultivated, agricultural, rangeland, forest, waterways, and wetlands. Updated. So one of the neat things that I took time to do when we came through to kind of update our Chapter 1 is we had an old figure 1-8, which was our average monthly rainfall per county, tracking average monthly rainfall at various weather stations. And when I started to look at the data behind this, I realized that it needed some updating. So historical climatic data needs to run 31 years. So it took quite some time to collect all that data for various weather stations inside, our counties, and then bring that data in and create a figure here of updated rainfall. And what I thought would be a neat enhancement to our Chapter 1 is historically we left it as this. We had a little, paragraph or two before figure 1-8, and then we showed our figure. And what I actually thought might be helpful to new readers or even just myself is to provide tables of that data. So instead of just looking at a line graph, which kind of tells the story, a high-level summary, you can actually see that and this is an example, for Jeff Davis County, the weather station that we have historically been pulling this data from is this Mount Locke. And so I went in and pulled those monthly rainfall between 1993 and 2023 for 31 years and show that here, January through December, for each year. And then you get your total average monthly down at the bottom. And that for Jeff Davis for Mount Locke is represented then on this table here in this light blue. So if a reader is curious to know, where did the data come from, we have now provided some additional details around our climatic precipitation data found in that climate section of Chapter 1. All right, then Chapter 1 also covers high level our regional water demands and our major water demand centers, what the largest water demand category is for the region, which is irrigation, which you can see in this nice figure here at the top right. This is also
Each one of these lines. For each county. Yeah, there's one.
Yep. Also included in Chapter 2. So like I said, Chapter 1 pulls information from each of the other chapters and kind of gives you a overall high level summary. We talk about agriculture. So the dominant commercial land use throughout the rural areas of Region E is extensive cattle grazing. We talk about municipal and our county other, which I'm so excited that we're going to get some county other representation for Region E. There's all sorts of information tucked into these sections, so don't get too focused on these bullet points. These were just kind of the ones that stood out. One for municipal and county other is that the city of El Paso has a projected water use of 120,789 acre feet in the year 2030, which represents 74% of the total municipal and county other water use for the region. County other is an aggregation of residential, commercial, and institutional water users in cities with less than 500 people or non-city utilities that provide less than 100 acre feet per year. So just kind of some level setting definitions and terminology and high-level highlights as to what you'll see as you dive a little deeper into each chapter. When it comes to our major water providers, we have that listed here in this table. There was no change from how we've identified what a major water provider is from our previous plan to our current plan. Surface water. So have questions around surface water. I've got John Albright and Crystal on the call with me, but they provided some information to this slide. And actually, if you don't mind, John, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot. If you want to speak to this slide, just high level to the group, that'd be great.
Sure. This is just introduction to the Rio Grande River, which is the your major water supply source in Region E, a major surface water supply source, and the flow in the Rio Grande is coming into the state of Texas is controlled by the Rio Grande project, Elephant, Butte, and Caballo reservoirs, and releases are made from those projects downstream for use in El Paso County. And I believe that water comes through, and y'all are very efficient with your surface water. I understand it get used at least 3 times before it finally gets into the river. But downstream of Fort Quitman, the river becomes what's known as the Forgotten River, and a section that's dry. It has a lot of water quality problems and a lot of issues. And there's a lot of efforts that are ongoing to address that. But down at Presidio, the Rio Conchos comes in from Mexico and brings, and it's a significant tributary. And most of the flow downstream of the Rio Conchos actually comes from Mexico, and eventually flowing out of the region and down into Amistad Reservoir. Now, there is the Pecos River, which is on the eastern boundary, a little bit in Terrell County. Although it is a major river, it's not used very much in Region E. It is, however, a important source of water for Region F. And then there's some big springs that come in, some springs that come in Terrell County, which once again bring flow into the river. One thing that's pointed here, we got figure 1-12, which is ecologically significant stream segments that have been, it's a category that was developed by the legislature for the regional water planning groups to identify significant streams in their region. And there's, you can see the ones that are on here. I don't remember how many there are, but there's quite a few of them that have been designated by the Region E water planning group as recommendation to the legislature, and the legislature has approved that those are ecologically unique river segments.
Thank you, John. He did a much better job of describing our changes. One thing I will point out is figure 1-11 has been updated to reflect just Region E as our boundary. In the previous plan, it was like a snippet of, what was it, New Mexico and
yeah, it was
Texas.
a whole upper basin.
Yeah. So we've done an update to the figure, which I'm really pleased with, that just kind of focuses it to our Region E boundary. Okay. We have a section on groundwater, and we talk heavily about groundwater. If you have been with the Regional Water Planning Group for any amount of time, you'll know that groundwater is about 95% of Region E's water supply. So we've got a big discussion around groundwater. The thing that's kind of unique to Region E is, in addition to the 10 designated Texas Water Development Board aquifers, the planning group has also designated 3. So historically, we've worked closely with the Water Development Board in outlining some other aquifers that we think are very substantial to the region, and they have been designated and approved by the Texas Water Development Board. We talk about our springs. We've got some springs in Region E that definitely continue to be critical water supply sources for entities and communities, are also very important to our groundwater and various types of species and habitats. So we have a good conversation and discussion in Chapter 1 around our major springs and their importance and significance to the region. We do have a section on reuse. We've talked about this in the executive committee meeting. This is one of several sections that I'll need probably support from y'all, the planning group members, in helping to update what we've been carrying from previous plans. Seems to be pretty light, and I think there's been enough change and new information coming in that we can definitely enhance our plan in various sections by bringing in new content. So just an awareness to several different sections as you're reading it. Please don't feel shy about picking up the phone or emailing me written material that you've put together as consideration to be included in this chapter, because we definitely want this to be your chapter reflecting, all the areas of importance to you. We have a water quality section where we talk about our water quality issues. We have a section on our supply source protection where we list entities that have participated in our source water protection program through TCEQ. And so you'll see that in your Chapter 1. As I updated that table, I worked with a gentleman at TCEQ who provided me the last 15 years of data. And interestingly, within Region E, there have been no new participants between 2014 and 2023. So I left the table to show historically, these are the individuals that have participated in that program, but did say that there's no new participants between the 2014 and 2023 data set. Water loss audit is going to be updated with more recent data. So that's something that'll come out in our September meeting as I spend some more time with the Water Development Board's water loss department and group. I've already had 2 workshops and meetings with them, so we're making some headway. But this section was not ready for, major conversation in today's meeting, although you'll see it in your red line with a little comment that just says this is being worked on and will be updated and ready for the planning group's review by our next meeting. Colonias, we have a table that lists Colonias. And so, hearing from Daniel today, I'm excited to, spend some time with him in conversation about a handful of things, but one of them might be updating, our table 1-10. So lots of new items could be coming into our draft chapters, which just shows, others that pick up our water plan and the Water Development Board that we're very serious about creating new content from one cycle to the next. We have a section that talks about this economically distressed area program that provides local governments with financial assistance for bringing water supply and wastewater services to these colonias. We have a total of 24 projects. According to the most recent report, the 2023 EDAP annual report that came out, and we have 2 active projects, which I have circled here in red. So the Montana Vista wastewater system is an active project, and in Presidio County, we have Presidio County water and wastewater improvements. So we always like to show, who's participating in the economically distressed area program and kind of what the status is of those projects. So I have updated that table. We're working with El Paso Water and UTIP to update our table 1-12. And this is the pumping, the Ciudad, Juarez, Hueco groundwater pumping, and all the content that goes with this discussion. So this will have some updates to it between now and the September posting of your revised chapter. So in addition to soliciting your feedback and your revisions, we've also got work, that's happened between our April meeting and this meeting to kind of get this draft chapter about 95% complete. And so we have some follow-up calls to make and some good red line revisions already completed.
May I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Oh, I was about to say we have a raised hand out there, Jennifer.
Okay, I can't see y'all, so I'm glad you're stopping me.
Can you, this is just more edification on my part. Can you remind me what constitutes a colonia, please?
Daniel. I think Daniel's going to do a better job. Oh, he slipped out?
What constitutes a colonia?
Okay, hang on. Let me get back to our colonia slide.
And that's okay. If you just nobody. Okay.
There is a definition out there, and it has something to do with the inability to have access to the clean water and wastewater, and the number of individuals. So you'll see here in El Paso County, there are 292 individual colonias. So we're talking very small areas. But Summer, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back and kind of pull that definition, unless Elizabeth has that off the top of her head.
Jennifer?
Yes.
I see it on the TCEQ website.
Perfect.
Colonias in Texas are residential subdivisions, usually in unincorporated areas of a county, lacking all or some of the basic services such as water and sewer, paved roads, electricity, drainage, etc.
Okay.
I think the only reason I asked is because I've been told that we, meaning Valentine, doesn't actually qualify, which I hope we do, because that would be better for us. But just because I don't want any of your reporting to be wrong, we might look into that. It would be great if we did, but I've been told that we don't. So
okay. I'm just going to make a note, Summer, and we can follow up.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. No. That's good.
I think you can add that it's 150 miles into being from the border. Along with that, what Teresa had mentioned. I'm with Communities Unlimited. My name is Rebecca Manriquez. Yes, so I think it's 150 miles within that border.
Yeah, I do think there is definitely geographically a distance there that they use in their definition.
Summer, we can also reach out to you in regards to for Valentine, because we are working with all those areas as far as Brewster County, somewhat Presidio, and then Davis as well. So if you could maybe provide your email, and we can reach out to you on that Colonia's assistance as well.
Sounds great. Thanks, Cuz.
Jennifer, a question from here. The purpose of the Colonias table is to quantify potential demand sectors for water. Is that correct?
Water and sewage.
Sorry?
Water and sewer.
Yeah, and sewer, right. Is that correct, that it's to quantify the potential demand, not necessarily current demand, right?
Or unmet needs.
Unmet needs? What's the purpose of the?
Yeah, so I'm opening up our red line chapter 1 because we do have content before the table gets presented. And I just want to make sure, okay, so we say that colonias represent a special and growing subset of municipal water demand. So we are addressing that there is a demand here in the region and present a challenge to water suppliers. While some colonias in the region are centuries-old historic settlements, most are substandard subdivisions in unincorporated areas located along the United States and Mexico international border that have been illegally subdivided into small parcels, characterized by a lack of basic services. Then we talk about, some of those small parcels, but then we say the Office of the Attorney General of Texas creates and maintains an extensive Colonia geographic database, which recognizes 312 subdivisions that qualify as colonias in the counties that make up the far west Texas region. So I think we're just drawing a reader's attention to the fact that we account for the colonias in our plan. We know that it's a growing subset that impacts our municipal water demands. That's likely not calculated in. And then the table just serves as the purpose of here's how many colonias reside in Region E, and we get that information from the Office of the Attorney General.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This is John Albright. I'll just pipe into is that one of the main purposes of regional water planning is to provide information to the legislature about funding needs. And there certainly is, there certainly are funding needs for these colonias, special funding needs. So that's another reason to include them in the plan.
Good point, John.
Good point. Very good point. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back to where we left off. To kind of wrap up our chapter 1, we have a long section. I say long, it's probably 3 pages, where we list the state and federal agencies with water responsibilities, and we have a write-up underneath each one with a hyperlink. So if a reader comes in and wants to learn more about each of these agencies, we've provided an updated hyperlink that will take them straight to their webpage. And then we do a section on local organizations and universities that have an impact to our regional water planning for Region E. So again, these lists, may need to be updated. We may need to add some things to the list, and that's where I'm going to rely heavily on each of you. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think that takes us through the agenda item for Chapter 1.
Okay, so we're on item 8, consideration and discussion of material from Carollo regarding a draft Chapter 2 for the 2026 Region E Water Plan.
Thank you. So to kind of cut some time off and not feel repetitive, we have shortened the presentation for Chapter 2 because one, the chapter itself is a little shorter. It's just focused on our population and water demand. And so the idea here is really that you download your draft Chapter 2 and take time looking through those red line revisions and offer feedback. But high-level summary for the purpose of today's meeting was just to kind of walk through some of the main sections that you're going to find as a reader in our Chapter 2. We definitely talk about population, and so there is a new section, well, just new content. So let me see if I can't pull it up for you guys. This was discussed this morning during the executive committee meeting. Word is wanting to be a little squirrely. All right. Can y'all see that I've changed from our PowerPoint to our red line?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I thought was important in honoring all of the work and the discussion around the scope items where we had to vote to approve our population projections, which we did some heavy revision to. If you can remember, the board gave us some draft data, and then we applied a national undercount to that draft data. And we had lots of meetings where you saw, a bar, actually it was a line graph, showed what our 2021 plan said we were at. It showed where the board's original data was. It showed a bump up when you apply that undercount census analysis. And then we heavily surveyed Region E with the COG's help. We ran a survey for about a month and a half to ensure that we got feedback from everybody. Whatever feedback those entities could provide us, we used as a way to explain that initial data set from the Water Development Board wasn't accurately reflecting the growth that we see in our region. So that became the documentation that we sent to the Water Development Board as our revision request. So we were requesting to revise their original data set with our new information. That got approved by the board, but it still didn't meet where we thought we ought to be, which was really more reflected in our 2021 plan. And so I think with the planning group's recommendation, Annette and Peggy worked with a gentleman at UTIP, and he provided a letter. Correct me if I'm wrong, Annette, on those events.
No, you're correct.
Okay, so that letter, as I was reading through it, he did such a great job in trying to justify the growth that's happening in each of the counties. So I included here in your section 2.1.2 his letter, and basically took what he wrote, brought it into this section as additional language, and then smoothed it out. I mean, the task for John and Crystal and I is that this reads like it's one author and not 6 million authors. And so we'd really appreciate if you would kind of read through, the entire chapter, but specifically pay attention to section 2.1.2, because this is the language that came in from that gentleman in the letter that he sent. And it starts here in the case of El Paso County. And then he has some definitive, stand on why, population growth may not be accurately reflected in our data because of, these substantial volumes of interest. He does that for every county. So I felt like this was really good language that could come in to clearly inform readers that we walk this precipice of following the Water Development Board's guidelines and using data there, but also balancing it with the local data and the local knowledge, because it is a bottom-up plan, right? And so I wanted to include that in our revisions and add it as an enhancement to this ever-evolving water plan. But I need you guys to kind of look through that and make sure you're in agreement with where I've added it and what we're saying. Okay.
Jennifer, would you, are you going to footnote that with the source of that material?
We definitely can. We definitely can. So let me write that down, because I think that also helps to support. So I'm going to just make a note, and we will add a footnote. We have another place where I've got a comment about adding the footnote to a source. So yeah, those are the types of things as you're reading, both documents. Go ahead and pull up the Word doc version. If that's not the one that I've sent for posting, just reach out to me and I'll email you the Word doc version. And then as you're reading through it, add comments and, underline or highlight or whatever you want to do as your way of reviewing the content, and then email that back to me. And I will spend time looking at your recommended changes and incorporate it into our master copy.
Jennifer, this is Scott.
Yep.
Right now, you mentioned the letter from Tom Fullerton at UTEP, and that he has different ideas on population projections, but we don't have results from him yet, correct?
We don't have results yet.
Yeah.
So it's basically saying that a study by UTEP commissioned by this group is underway.
Yep.
And we will report those results when they become available.
Before the draft is submitted.
I just wonder how we're basically saying that there is an alternative population scenario floating around being developed, but how does it get at least included in the plan by attachment kind of thing?
Yep. So that's a good question. And I know you and I have talked about this extensively offline. And I think where I'm headed and what the Water Development Board, is also saying would be an okay path to take. First, you can see the last paragraph here just kind of sums it up. So all of the above indicate that the planning group members strongly feel that the Water Development Board population projections understate the rates of demographic expansion likely to occur in the Far West Texas region. The Far West Texas Water Planning Group desires additional analysis of the population patterns in all 7 counties and will focus on this analysis as the regional water planning process continues. So that's kind of how I worded the letter. And then the next step would be to get back the results, which I think you said would be ready sometime in August, and look at those results. Now, I've talked to the Water Development Board in 2 other regions, and John Albright and Crystal were on the call with me. We're not the only region that disagree with the population projections, and there are other regions doing something very similar to what I've recommended, which is once those results come in, we will need to go into our regional water plan and we'll need to add a write-up around that new, around those findings. And we can say, you know, that the regional water plan requires that we follow the Water Development Board's guidance, but then also allows for local input. And so we can have in our plan those 2 kind of delineated discussions throughout the chapters where it's relevant. As far as developing water management strategies.
Jennifer, I have a side comment from one of the Daves here.
Okay.
But we think that there ought to be some context as to what flat population projections mean to us. I've said before to this group that if our El Paso is not growing, then the various federal agencies that are on this call may look and say that we don't need future funding from the federal government for our future water supply projects because we don't have future demands increasing. They would say it's all maintenance, and they don't fund maintenance, they fund new water supply projects. So you get new water supply projects with increasing population. So we'd like to see some context in there that when you have flat populations, you don't get funding for roads, hospitals. Federal and state funding are compromised because of this. So that's why we are respectfully examining population growth in our region.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And so if you and the Daves.
There is a, there's Teresa. Go ahead.
Microphone. Can't hear you, Teresa.
You're muted.
I apologize. I was just going to ask if there was any plan of action or resolution for how to end up handling Fort Bliss, because I know they've had in XCOM this morning, we were talking about their kind of explosive growth in population. So I was just wondering if we had a plan to capture that.
We do. In fact, what came out of that conversation, and I took a note, is that I need to connect with Gilbert Mesa and ask him to provide some additional content around the growth in Fort Bliss, which will then make its way into our chapter 2, and I'll find a good home for that and then send it back to him and ask him if he approves, you know, of where we've placed it. So yeah, we have some work to do between now and our September meeting with regard to adding the content in that's missing. So Scott, to your point around flat population may hinder, you know, funding for projects. If you and the Daves, or if you want to delegate it to the Daves, would like to add, you know, a paragraph, when you're looking at your Word doc, slide it in and call it out in a comment and send that along with any other kind of feedback you have to me, and I will make sure to incorporate it in our evolving and growing and, you know, new chapter 2. So this is the type of feedback and discussion I was hoping to have today, both with the executive committee members and with the general planning group, is this is as far as I could take it based on what I know to update, and then plus a lot of emails and phone calls with other entities that have already provided a lot of good updated material. But now it's your turn to kind of step into this and be a part of the planning process and really own, you know, your chapter 1 and your chapter 2 with regard to what you want it to say around some of these topics that are near and dear to us.
That sounds good to me.
Good. Sounds like we're all aligned on what's expected between now and, I guess, late August. Okay, so to wrap up our PowerPoint, if we move back to that, I'll go over kind of quickly. We talk about what that population projection methodology was that we agreed to. This is one of the many, you know, bar graphs or line charts that we used in some of our presentations when this was one of the agenda items that had to be voted on. And like I said, the blue line here is our 2021 population. So when I say 2021, this is the projected population growth throughout the planning horizon that we included in our 2021 regional water plan. New information came out. We were on a census year, so we got the benefit of that. They did come back to say that there was a national undercount that we then applied. And then we surveyed all of the entities to collect information that would help us to justify what that population revision request was going to be. To kind of tee it all up, we got to this dark yellow line. So you can see, you know, where we are still unhappy with where we had projected population in our previous water plan and where we're at. And that is why we've got the UTIP letter included, and we've got another population projection analysis coming out in August. So I'm anxious to see what that data reveals. We have updated our pie charts and our bar graphs to reflect, you know, our approved revised data. And this bullet just again calls out, you know, that we've included in this section language from Tom on his assessment of what that population really looks like by county for the region. We've updated our water demand. We do water demand, you know, we look at it in various ways. On the left-hand side, figure 2.4 is projected by county. And on the right-hand side, figure 2-5 is projected by water use category. So irrigation, livestock, mining, municipal, manufacturing, county other, so on and so forth. So those figures have been updated in our chapter. So I think if there are no questions, that's the summary to provide the planning group members and others just an update on what your technical consultants have been busy doing as we've done our revisions to chapter 1 and 2, and now we'll wait for any kind of feedback and correspondence with you guys on additional work or additional revisions. I think that takes us to agenda 9.
Jennifer, you said that you'd like to have all that input by when, the 3rd week of August?
Yes, because technically we don't have to post meeting material until 3 days before the meeting. We've tried really hard to be good about a week out at least, if not 2 weeks. But yes, if we could agree on that 3rd week in August, that gives me time to get it all wrapped up and out to Annette and Peggy and get it posted so that you guys then have time to review all the updates. Because I think what we'll be asking in the September meeting is to adopt our final chapters 1 and 2.
Just to reiterate to everybody then, any input needs to be in by the 3rd week of August.
Yes, thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Crack that whip.
Yeah, well,
That's what he does.
set a goal out there.
Okay. We're on item 9, report from Carollo on other regional water planning efforts.
Okay. So just to let the planning group members know that the Water Development Board reviewed our notice to proceed, task 5B language. As I mentioned in the executive committee meeting this morning, they had just a few small changes that they needed my approval for. One was to modify to include ASR as its own scope item. So in our submittal, we had lumped groundwater development and ASR kind of in the same scope category, and they preferred to see ASR out. So I said, yes, that's fine. We also removed groundwater desalination from the groundwater development scope item and made its own strategy. So just kind of cleaning up that groundwater development category by defining ASR as its own scope item and desal as its own scope item. And then the board notified all of the regional water planning consultants that they are adding standard language to this other project category. So we take our list of existing strategies, we lump them into categories, and then there's this category that we call other projects. And that is earmarked for new projects that need to come on to our list and be included in our 2026 regional water plan. So as we're having conversations with GCDs and water utility groups or others representing, water supply in our region, and they look at their list and they say, well, those 3 still remain, but I've got 2 more that I know is in discussion, and we've started some preliminary design on it. So we would use this other project bucket of money to kind of handle the evaluation of those new projects. And so the board said, okay, that's fine, but we're going to add some language, and that's here in orange. And they added other strategies will be approved by the Far West Texas Water Planning Group with concurrence of the TDUB prior to evaluation. So basically, once I get a more refined list of our new water management strategies for the region, the new ones need to be approved by the planning group and the water development board before we start the formal evaluation and cost analysis. All right.
Jennifer,
yes.
Do you anticipate that orange clause being used on our process?
I do. From what I've heard today with some of the new members excited about joining our planning group, I think there's information out there that we didn't capture either in the previous plan or wouldn't have known to capture in our updated 2026 plan. And so based on those conversations, Task 5B is one of the areas in our scope where there's this need for a lot of flexibility. You've talked to the entities 5 years ago, and at that time, this was their list. Well, in 5 years, there's a lot of things that could change. And so strategies are coming off or being revised, or new strategies are definitely coming on. I know in the previous plan for Lower Valley Water District, we were very hard pressed for any kind of participation up until that 2021, plan. And then we had 3 gentlemen that were very eager to get involved. And in those conversations, we probably added 6 new projects. So it'll be interesting to circle back with entities like that to ensure that we've got a clean list. And so I do anticipate new projects that the planning group will need to look at. And then the Water Development Board will definitely need to review as well before we go into the evaluation process.
Jennifer, how long will it take for the water board to approve or concur with any of those additions that we make?
So that timeline hasn't been delineated for technical consultants, but I know we've got Elizabeth who might be able to speak to what that turnaround time would look like.
Yeah, I would expect that to be a fairly quick process, especially, the planning group approves it, we'll take a look at it and make sure that it kind of fits under the contract and guidance. And then, we understand where you guys are on a tight timeline to get everything evaluated and prepared by the IPPs in March. So I would expect that to be a fairly quick process.
Thank you.
I'm just a little curious on this. I'll call it the orange clause again. You, Jennifer, talking to some agency or entity of Region E, they expressed their needs they participate in the water planning process. At what point do you have to go report this to TDUB to get concurrence to process it? Because it sounds to me like if they express needs, your group evaluates, makes a water supply project, a water management strategy with costs, etc., like that. It sounds like what I'm reading here, you're not allowed to do that until you kind of give an idea, and then you get concurrence on a very vague idea. I'm just kind of curious on your thoughts on this process, because it sounds like what I understood before is that you and the stakeholders would develop a concept, give it your best to the state, and then the state would say, okay, here's your management strategy, but we don't approve it. You need to tweak this, or we don't think it's correct. I'm just curious, how does TDUB review something that right here it seems very vague and sketchy?
So I guess to Elizabeth's point, the board is offering the planning group a lot of flexibility. What they would like to see is, once I come to the planning group members with our new list, and of that list, I'll be able to say, okay, planning group, here in El Paso County, we have Lower Valley Water District who wants to add these 2 projects. They weren't listed in our 2021 plan. End of story. We have in Brewster County 1 new project, right? When the planning group then approves that new list, I think all that the Water Development Board is asking is that they get to see that list as well. So after the planning group approves that new list at whatever regional water planning group meeting that is, I'd submit that list to Heather, and she can then do her review of it and say, yes, it makes sense that Lower Valley wants 2 new projects. Those projects look fine. They're not looking to have massive amounts of details around those projects quite yet, because that would require that evaluation step. And they're saying, hey, before you get to that evaluation step, we just want to do a sniff test and make sure that what's being added as new projects fit the scope, right? And you've talked to that a little bit, Scott. They have to bring in new supply, right? There's some guidance around what a water management strategy is, and it's not, maintenance or infrastructure. It's something that brings on new supply. So I think the Water Development Board would just be looking for something like that. Okay, that brings on a new supply. Okay, that's a groundwater well. Okay, that's a expansion of a wastewater treatment plant. All looks good. And then we can start the evaluation.
No, that's a good explanation. Thank you.
And I'll just briefly add, so this task 5B, you guys approved this notice to proceed that was submitted to TWDB. We reviewed and approved it, and this other project is kind of a vague subcategory where you guys maybe have lumped in some other funds for projects you're not aware of yet. So this is kind of a similar process that you'll be going through for that notice to proceed, where the planning group reviewed what Jennifer had prepared and approved it, and then submitted it to TWDB. So it's a kind of a similar level of review. Yep.
I see a value to this process in that Jennifer and a stakeholder can't go spend 6 months on a strategy that everyone else thinks is really a poor strategy. It doesn't make sense on the state level or on our level, and this can kind of stop that and just kind of get some concurrence on something that seems to be a good concept to proceed with.
Yeah, I agree.
No, this is Jerry Grijalva from the Lower Valley Water District. Our experience has been is we've actually submitted, we've got the plan approved, and it's part of our West Texas plan. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't spur funding. It makes TWDB aware of what we need, but we still have to compete for funding with other entities.
Yes, that's true. Chapter 5 has become kind of like the funding mechanism of regional water planning, where if you're going after SWIFT, which is just one of the many different funding mechanisms that the board offers, it has this requirement that it's at least listed in the regional water plan. So to ensure that we're not keeping folks from a funding option, we make sure that we're heavily surveying and having conversations with the entities in the region so that we're representing, the projects. Now, it doesn't guarantee, the funding side of that is separate, but at least you can say, I'd like to come in for SWIFT and I'm eligible to do that because my project listed in the regional water plan. Okay, last. Oh, any other questions?
Not for me.
Okay. Wrapping us up is just kind of next steps, where we headed. Frieza Nichols and I are looking to collect all of our drought contingency plans. So if you're representing an entity and you have done an update to your drought contingency plan, please go ahead and email that to myself or the COG. I know Annette and Peggy will get that to me. We need that information in order to kind of start the update to Chapter 7, which is our drought chapter. And I think it was in May, Elizabeth, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the deadline was in May for those drought contingency plans to be submitted. So there should be a lot of good updated plans out there, and I just need copies of those. As we've discussed in detail, we're going to start that water management strategy evaluation by first kicking off a survey to begin the conversations with each entity around what was represented in the 2021 plan and what needs to be changed to accurately reflect, where they're at now for the 2026 plan. So we'll start a survey process here and get some information pulled together so we can present on that in September about where we're at, who we've heard from, who we still need to hear from, and get some input from the group. In addition to that, at our September meeting, we will also be providing your draft Chapter 3 and draft Chapter 4. And it's the same exercise, we're soliciting feedback and input. So as of today, we need to work on our Chapter 1 and 2, which we went through, and have everything into me by the 3rd week of August. And then coming to you in September will be your draft 3 and 4. And then we'll select the day when all red lines need to be turned into me to ensure that we can get to a final 3 and 4 chapter. And those are kind of the big items that we'll be working on to get ready for our September meeting. And then I think outside of that, we're just looking to kind of set the next meeting date, and there was conversation around that during the executive committee meeting, and I will let Mr. Chairman kind of take it from here.
Okay, so it sounds like we're on item 10. Do we have an update from Elizabeth?
Yes, I do have an update for you, and I've got a few slides. Let me share my screen. Alrighty, hopefully you can see my slides now. My name is Elizabeth McCoy. I'm with the Texas Water Development Board. And since your last meeting, the deadline for submitting updated water conservation plans, water conservation plan annual reports, and water loss audits passed. Those were due on May 1st. So if you were required to submit those reports and haven't been able to get them in, we are still accepting late submissions. In May, TWDB held a conference call with the Regional Water Planning Group chairs. We discussed kind of updates on 6 cycle activities and some recently released resources for planning groups. And I'm going to be sharing more information on those new resources in just a moment. And then, as Jennifer mentioned, Region E submitted their technical memorandum. TWDB reviewed it and found the document to be administratively complete. We also reviewed the draft data and methodologies that were presented in the tech memo, and we have provided some informal comments for the region to consider as you put together your initially prepared plan. I also want to mention this morning, TWDB had a board meeting and board members were briefed on an implementation plan for the Texas Water Fund. The plan was developed to be responsive to stakeholder feedback and the requirements in Senate Bill 28. The plan is intended to be flexible and it is subject to change. Included in the plan is a proposal for how to distribute Texas Water Fund funding through existing funding programs, the new Water Supply for Texas Fund, and the statewide public awareness program. It also includes a timeline for board activities through spring of 2025. If you're interested in the details of the plan, the document is now available on our website. If you go to the main TWDB website, there's a kind of hot topic link for the Texas Water Fund. And if you click on that, it'll take you to our Texas Water Fund webpage, and there's a link to the implementation plan. And then kind of going into some of the recently released resources that are available to planning groups. Earlier this month, we released the draft 2026 Regional Water Plan Water Supply Needs and Surplus Map, which you can see a snapshot of here, zoomed in on Region E. The purpose of this map is to visualize preliminary working regional water plan data and help identify entities that may have similar needs in near proximity that could potentially be met by a shared project. This cycle, the map also includes a brackish aquifer sample area layer, which is included to facilitate potential exploration of regionalized brackish groundwater systems. This is a kind of working tool that's primarily intended for the planning group members and consultants. It's not meant for general widespread consumption since it does use that draft plan data. And you can find a link to this tool in your meeting materials or in the email announcement that was sent out to stakeholders on January the 2nd or July the 2nd. Next, I'll go into some new conservation resources that are available for planning groups this cycle. You may be aware that TWDB has a variety of conservation and water use related data, reports, and tools that are available for planning groups. And we've compiled information on all of these resources into a conservation resources guide for 2026 regional water plans. Kind of a snapshot of that is shown here. The guide outlines data that's reported to TWDB. It highlights the new TWDB Conservation Information Dashboard for water supply planning. It also provides information on conservation best management practices, some suggestions from the Water Conservation Advisory Council to regional water planning groups, example water loss strategies from the 2021 regional water plans, information on water loss performance indicators, and some resources for GPCD goal setting. You can download the guide and find some direct links to all of these conservation resources online. We've set up a conservation resources for 2026 regional water plans webpage, which is linked on the 6th cycle planning webpage under task 5, and I'll show you kind of where to find that in just a minute. But first, I want to show just a little bit of information that you can find in the guide. So TWDB collects water use conservation related information from utilities via several different reports, specifically the water use survey, water loss audit, water conservation plan, and water conservation plan annual reports. Each of these reports have different requirements in statute and rule for who is required to report, what information is collected, and then when reports are due. So the guide includes a table that kind of outlines the data that's reported in each of these reports, and then also provides examples of how planning groups can utilize this data when developing conservation strategies. So this slide and the next slide include excerpts from that table. And just as an example, planning groups can use data from the water use survey to analyze or to look at trends in water use in the region. For water loss audit data, you can use that to look at trends in water loss. And then planning groups could consider strategies to address any issues that may have been identified in that water loss audit data. Water loss audits also include data on like the number of connections for utilities, which could be used in estimates for meter replacement projects. The guide also goes over data reported in water conservation plans and annual reports. And data in both of these reports could be used to develop water user group specific conservation strategies. Then to support the planning group task of setting municipal gallons per capita per day or GPCD goals, we've put together some optional resources that planning groups can consider. The first is the TWDB Conservation Information Dashboard for planning. This dashboard provides regional GPCD statistics, historical GPCD data, the GPCD goals that planning groups set in their 2021 regional water plans, and it also includes total GPCD targets from water conservation plans. Next is the Secure Agency Reporting Application, or SARA Report ID 102. This calculates an adjusted WUG GPCD by taking a WUG's baseline planning GPCD and then adjusting it to account for any projected kind of passive water efficiency savings and any recommended water management strategy conservation savings. We offered this as a spreadsheet last cycle to planning groups. They could request it if they were interested. This cycle, it's available in the Secure Agency Reporting application, so consultants can go in and run that report for themselves if the region's interested in looking at that. And then lastly, we've developed a spreadsheet that provides 2026 Regional Water Plan baseline GPCDs, and then also calculates an adjusted water user group GPCD based on a methodology that was suggested by the Water Conservation Advisory Council. And this reduces a WUG's baseline GPCD by 1% for each year since the WUG's baseline dry year. And then you can find information on these additional resources in the conservation guide. I won't get into them now, but I would invite you to take a look at the guide for more information. And so Leslie, I do want to share the new conservation information dashboard for water supply planning. This dashboard can help planning groups visualize some of the available water use and conservation data that we have and potentially inform conservation strategy development or GPCD goal setting. So I will just take a few minutes and demo that for you. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a question. Summer, did you have a question?
I'm not seeing who has a question. Is there a question? Okay. Dave?
Maybe
Dave?
not then.
No. No question from the Daves.
Okay.
They usually have a lot of questions, so, right?
Okay, so
We're cool.
So if you go to the 6th cycle planning webpage, hopefully you're familiar with this, and you scroll down to task 5, which is the task for strategy evaluations. There is this bullet for conservation resources for 2026 regional water plan development. And so this is the webpage we put together that houses all of the conservation resources. This first section is where you'll find that resource guide that I just talked a little bit about. And the second bullet is the second section is how you can access the new dashboard. And then since I'm here, I'll just point out that this is where you can also find our water loss audit data and those GPCD related spreadsheets and some links to additional resources. So going to the dashboard, this first page of the dashboard is historical water user group planning GPCD statistics by region. This is presenting historical data from 2016 to 2021, and the statistics are based on the historical planning GPCDs, which are calculated from self-reported water use from the water use survey and TWDB estimated water user group permanent population. You can filter the data by region. So if you just want to take a look at region E, and then you can also filter the data by utility size if you're interested in kind of looking at the data that way. In this table on the left, we provide some additional statistics. So minimum, average, median, maximum, and then a count of the number of WUGs that are included in the statistics. And then below the dashboard is a spreadsheet that you can download that has all of the data that's presented in the dashboard.
Hey, Jennifer, I have a question for you. Elizabeth, can you go to that table?
Yes.
El Paso's gallon per capita currently is 130. And I was just curious what table is this? Is this
table
a different?
Here on the left?
Yeah, that's the region, right?
Yes, this is summarized for the whole region. So this is including for 2016, including 21 WUGs.
So it's the amount of population divided by water produced on an annual basis?
It is looking at the gallons per capita per day by WUG, and then we run the statistics off of that, the WUG GPCDs.
Okay, so the average is 238. I just tried to put this into context with because Dave was saying, I just told, little side note, Dave asked me what ours is in El Paso, and I said 130, and then he looked at that and called me a liar. So, kind of. I was embellishing just to get, But anyway, Jennifer, our number that we report is 130. We were just trying to, it sounds different, and I'm just curious what your comment is on that.
Yeah, I think the key here is that we're looking at the region as a whole, right, Elizabeth? And the average of the 22. So if you're looking at your 2021 year, that's that last line, there were 22 WUGs that had information that got averaged. So unfortunately, showcasing El Paso Water's amazing 135, 138 GPCD gets lost, in that average. I mean, it helps to bring that average down. You can see 238 is pretty low compared to some of the other line items. So I'm sure your GPCD input is drawing that average down, but I don't know, Elizabeth, I haven't played with this tool yet. But from what you've seen, I think its intent is to kind of give a high level summary for the region, not to drill down into each entity, right?
Right. We do have another page that I'm about to show you where you can kind of dig deeper into water user group or public water system level data. Okay. But this page is intended for regional statistics. All right, I'll keep going unless there's another question. So the next tab is this reporting requirements tab, which provides an overview of reporting requirements for the water use survey, the water loss audit, the water conservation plans, and water conservation plan annual reports. So it provides information on which reports are required for specific entities and when upcoming deadlines are. You can filter the data by region or by county. You can also filter it to select a specific water user group. So if we wanted to, look at Alpine, we could do that and see kind of when their next water use survey, water loss audit, or water conservation plan are due. And then again, you can download data from the dashboard via these links below the dashboard. There's also some links to each of these other reports and information on them on the TWDB's webpage. Next is the gallons per capita per day. Let's see, where are we? Okay, gallons per capita per day trends and targets page. So this page is going to show you different types of GPCD that are reported to TWDB at a water user group or public water system level. So we can.
Can you do El Paso water? Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what we have for El Paso water.
There you go. 130 in 2016.
See.
So
I feel
I'll kind of.
because Dave was looking at me funny, like I was making stuff up, so I feel better personally.
I feel better too.
Yeah.
I feel better too.
As your president, I feel better.
I'm not
So
drunk.
on this page, we present several distinct types of GPCD, and above the dashboard, we kind of describe each of these different types of GPCD. And then you can filter the dashboard to look at data for a specific water user group, or if you're looking, you have the public water system ID, you can search for an entity that way. The orange is the water user group's planning GPCD, and these orange circles are the GPCD goals that the planning group set in their 2021 regional water plans. So that's the water user group level data, and it's also presented in this top table. The
Jennifer, I
blue,
thought we were going down to 118 by 2040 or 50. It doesn't show much decline.
Yeah, I think I'd have to look back in the 2021 plan because that's what's being shared here on the dashboard.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we had, just looking at it with a high level, it doesn't look like we have very ambitious goals for our future. And I thought we did. And we always talk about it being our most important water supply strategy is water conservation, but that doesn't show that we have much future plans for lowering that. And I think we do.
Yes, I think you're right. And that's part of the update we'll do because that is a strategy for El Paso Water. And so, I mean, like I said, I haven't looked at this dashboard. It's fairly new, and they're pulling that information off of the 2021 regional water plans. So what we'll need to do, Scott, is just look at that table from that plan and see what updates are needed.
It used to go like 5 per decade. Remember that? We talked about that in previous plan. We'll see how it calculates. Anyway.
so then the blue data is the data that the utility reports in their water conservation plan annual report. So this is a total GPCD versus a planning GPCD, which is the orange. So that's what the blue data is. And then these blue diamonds are what the utility reports for their total GPCD 5 and 10-year goals. So that's the information you can find on this kind of page. Again, you can download the data in different formats via the links below the dashboard.
It's showing you a goal lower than the line. It is. Yeah, that diamond was lower than the line for your 2030 goal.
It's everyone.
It looks like it's 128.
Maybe.
So this page is the municipal conservation best management practices and recommended projects. This page is displaying two types of data. The top table is conservation best management practices that the utility reported as implemented in their water conservation annual report from 2016 to 2022. And then the bottom table is presenting recommended municipal conservation projects from the 2021 regional water plans. And this page is intended to kind of help connect what utilities are reporting that they're kind of implementing for conservation, and then what information is recommended for them in terms of conservation projects in the regional water plan. So if we want to, you can search by region or by water user group. So here we have it filtered by Horizon Regional Mud, and you can see these are the best management practices that the entity reports as having implemented between 2016 and 2022. And then here we have information on the conservation project that was recommended for them in the 2021 regional water plan. And then,
so I guess, real quick, yes. Elizabeth, if you go back, I guess when I'm looking at this, my first thought is how nice it is to now have a dashboard that has collated all that information based on what they're submitting, right? Because in the previous plan, it was very, very tricky to get that information, to know what it is that they've got, as a best management practice. Is it the Water Development Board's vision to see that the strategies coming in on the 2026 plan pertaining to conservation align a little bit better? I mean, are we to add some of what they're listing in their best management practices to the 2026 plan?
Yeah, it's up to the planning group how they want to evaluate conservation strategies for water
Mhm.
user groups. Different regions do different approaches, but this tool is to kind of help if planning groups want to look more specifically at what entities are reporting as implemented. It's hopefully helpful to give you guys that data in a way that you can kind of process it during your evaluation potentially. But it's up to the planning group. You know, if you're able to develop water user group specific conservation strategies, it seems like that can give you a better estimate of what the conservation strategy savings for a particular WUG might be. So it could improve some of the planning data for conservation strategies.
Okay.
And again, we have the data down here, so you can have it in a spreadsheet format. And some, I think in the last plans, you know, some planning groups included summary tables of this information, even if it wasn't specifically, you know, included in their conservation strategy for a particular entity. This last page is displaying the recently implemented conservation BMPs reported in those water conservation annual reports from 2016 to 2022. So this is the same data that was shown in the top table on the previous page. You can filter it to select a region, and then you can also select a year from 2016 to 2022. And then individual municipal conservation BMPs are generally categorized into like 8 or so broad categories. So this top chart is showing the data summarized at that BMP category level. And then the bottom chart breaks the data down to an individual BMP level. And then the number of systems that we're reporting and are included in these graphics is kind of highlighted right here in the middle of the chart. So if you click on a category in this top chart, we can click on education and public awareness. It will highlight the individual BMPs that are associated with that category in the bottom graph. So this is just a different way to visualize some of that BMP implementation data. And again, you can download the data in a spreadsheet below the dashboard. And that's kind of the quick demo that I have for you guys for the dashboard. I will note that we are planning to update the dashboard annually to keep the data current, and then the regional water plan data will be updated every 5 years. And I think that's all the updates that I have for you today, but happy to take any questions.
I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Thank you, Elizabeth. I think we're on to item 11 on our agenda.
Next week.
Yes, so I was not here when you all had a discussion on when you wanted to set the next meeting up, but
Second week in September.
second week in September, okay. I
That's
know,
what Jennifer asked for.
and I know that we used to, we always dedicated Thursdays to these meetings. They used to be, I think, Becky Brewster, do you remember it was a third Thursday? But, oh, you're muted, Becky.
So what's the date the second week?
I
It
prefer.
used to be the fourth Thursdays when we were having regular meetings.
Okay, so I know you all want the second. Do we have a date preference?
What's the Thursday of the second week?
I can't do that.
19th is the third week.
Yeah, I can't do the second
That's the
Thursday.
12th, right?
Yeah, I can't do the 12th.
So
Can you do the
19th?
19th?
I
The
could
third
do the
week?
19th.
No, because I won't be here.
I could do the 10th.
Or
Is the
Peggy,
19th okay, Jennifer?
You're gone.
I'm open.
but Peggy can do it then.
Okay. If
Okay.
that works for you, that's enough time still?
Yes, the 19th.
Yeah. Okay.
So what we'll do is we are alternating the locations.
Yes.
Or no, we're not going to be alternating the locations. We're going to be meeting hybrid. So we will have the meeting. Folks, gentlemen, can I ask if we look at a different date? Because Peggy might be at the State Association meeting as well as me. So we're out of the office on that week.
For that week of
Yes.
September?
Mm-hmm.
I could do it Tuesday, September 10th. Sounds
That's
like
okay.
we jumped to the,
I can do the 10th.
yep.
Jennifer, Elizabeth, the 10th.
10 September?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, I hope everyone else online is okay with that too. We'll send out the calendar right now so you can put it on there. But we'll do September 10th, 2024 at 1 p.m. We will have to have our executive committee meeting so we can review the nominees for the 2 positions that we will have open.
10:30 again?
Yes,
So we're gonna have at 10:30, is that what you said?
Yes,
And where are we going to do this?
Here.
Here again?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so
right.
just to remind everyone, we'll do September 10th, 2024. That will be at 10:30 a.m. for the executive and 1 p.m. for the general meeting, and it'll be a hybrid.
Okay.
And Hudspeth will not be able to attend that day.
Where are you going to be?
We have our meeting on the second Tuesday at 1 o'clock, our board meeting.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
That's okay.
And
Y'all can go ahead and take care of it.
yeah, and I won't be able to be there, but you guys can do it.
Well, send your alternates.
Well, Randy's alternates is going to be in the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, we'll get it figured out. Okay.
That's another thing I need to tell the committee, that my alternate has resigned and her last day will be August 14th. So I'll have to have someone else.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, that'll take care of that. Chairman Scott, we just need a motion.
Just back on the date, we're still staying with September 10th?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. And we're up to item 12, adjourn.
Yes, we just need a motion.
Motion?
Anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn?
Also moved.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey,
Second.
Albert, feel right.
There you go.
Motion passes.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Look at that. Yep.
Well, 3 o'clock,
Told you it
like
would
you
be
predicted.
three.
Yep.
It was a good meeting, very comprehensive.
Yeah, it was.
You guys,
Actually got a
you guys
picture of it.
take care of a lot of stuff.
A full-scale picture. Look at this.
It'll be interesting to see the
Oh, yeah.
response to your posting for those new positions.
Do we need,
Yeah, because if you get you might get like 5 more and then you love them all. So at some point you're gonna have to say no more.
let me ask you a
Oh,
question.
wait.